Welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. Well, we didn't get a lot of boat building done this week over at the lot because we spent the week taking down the tunnel tent, which meant we had to get a lot of helpers over and a scissor lift and all that process to take it back down.
Yeah, and we didn't film any of that simply because it was just a reverse of putting it up, and it wasn't that interesting, and of course we were just not in the great mood about it, so we didn't want to be the downer of taking it down.
Yes.
So we didn't want to shoot that. So instead, we just want to give you kind of a brief update of what we did and what we're planning for the future on this video. And because that's a lot of what we spent the week doing besides taking down that tunnel tent. Now early in the week, on Monday and Tuesday, we were actually still putting it up, and that was part of last week's video. We went long, but we added it into last week's video. So really it was midweek of this week that we started taking it down. So we got till Friday, and that's all we'd accomplished is that colossal task. And of course we had to meet with the city and such and find out all the bad news because none of it got any better. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, before we get to our plan, about the comments we've been getting on last week's video. First of all, really want to thank all of you for the support that the comments have given us in a very dark week for us. And it's been really nice to see people commenting and giving sympathy and complaining about the government, which that's high on our list this week, and also making suggestions and such. Unfortunately, a lot of the suggestions had some things in common. One of them was, well, you have to move to a new place. Well, that's way easier said than done. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why moving to a new place is next to impossible. First, let's look at the fact that I spent 6 months looking for a place to build this boat somewhat near us. And I met with many cities, and I filled out paperwork and dealt with lawyers, and you wouldn't believe the proposals I had to put in and all these different things, and then I got denied and denied and denied. Nobody wanted to take the risks of letting us build a boat, and the very few cities that did allow us to build gave us like, okay, well, you can build it in this little tiny area between this block and these 3 blocks and those 3 blocks, and that's it. And there's literally nothing available in those areas. There were no plots of land at any price. We tried airports and tried renting hangars. We've tried everything. For 6 months we looked. And I was practically in despair at building this anywhere near where we live until I found the lot we found. And that was just a miracle find for us because it had a great price for us. There's some negatives, obviously, and now we're running into some of those right this week. But on the other hand, it didn't cost us a lot of money, and our money is not unlimited. And we can't afford another $50,000 or $60,000 on top of what the boat is costing us to build because we just don't have it. So we can't take some of those options that are extremely expensive. For example, we looked down by the beach, and there were a couple of boat yards down there that would let us build to the tune of $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 to do it, and we just don't have that money. So we found this lot that was very close to us, and it was at a very reasonable price. And so it was a wonderful thing. But now to say, well, let's just move. Well, first of all, we have 2 long, 50-foot long canoes built that we would have to truck somewhere. Then there's the fact that we already checked everywhere around, and there just isn't anything. And we did spend some time this week looking again. There's just nothing available at any distance. Yeah, I could move. But we don't want to do that. I could buy a place up in the desert, high desert, but then I'm dealing with extreme colds and extreme heat because that's what you get in the high desert. Those are 2 extremes. And I don't really want to do that. So there's a lot of reasons why moving it is just not a logistic or financial option for us. as long as the city's going to allow us to build the boat, and they are. They're just being, I don't know what the right word is, sticklers for the rules
Yes.
about the tent. And here's the thing there. Some of you also, after the group that say we should move, then there was the group that said we should work with the guy who is the resident of the same lot with the house up in front and get him to be the one okaying putting the tent up. We checked with the city with that. They will not allow it. No matter what he says, they're still not going to allow us at this point because they know we're the ones building it. And he doesn't really have the Christmas spirit. He's not willing to help us, the guy up front. But even if he was, even if somehow I could convince him with cash or whatever it takes, there's still another problem. That's only allows us to put up a tent. But now the city's told me that the highest the tent could be, even if we were the resident, is 16 feet. And the boat is 15 feet tall. That means it would be 1 foot above the boat, which means that we couldn't work on the decks or the cabin top stuff or any of that because it'd be too low. So even if I got permission, the tent would be too low to work. And as far as the shipping containers go, that doesn't matter. Literally, they won't let him or us have the shipping containers. Those are just out. So again, I appreciate all of your suggestions, and we did look into all of those things, and it's just not possible. But the city, did say we can build the boat. All right, so we're going to build it. And so now let's talk a little bit about our plan for building the boat. Last week I showed you this overhead view of the lot and where we were going to be putting the boat and the shipping containers and such. But we now have to rearrange that and come up with a new plan.
Yeah. And so one of the YouTube channels that we follow is called Onboard Lifestyle. And recently they were in the Sea of Cortez and pulled their boat out to do some work on it, painting and such. And they did that in an open boatyard.
Right, in the heat of the summer in northern portions of the Sea of Cortez. This is very hot and of course very dusty in those things, and yet they painted the whole boat. And that is just good inspiration for us that if they can do that outdoors in that condition, our conditions are better than that. And so I'm not, I don't want to say I'm not worried, but I'm confident that we can build our boat. And that's not the only channel. I just wanted to use that one as an example. Many boats are painted out in boatyards. So when it comes to the finish work of painting it, we will be able to do that. We're rolling the whole thing anyway. We're not spraying it, so we don't need to cover it from that standpoint. We'll be able to do it. It's the earlier portions of the build that are the toughest, the ones that are coming up right now. Because we're very close to flipping those canoes over. And once we flip them over and get the interior of them glassed in, we'll be putting the bulkheads across, and this is the time when it rains, water could collect inside those canoes because they're now big bathtubs. And so we will have to do a lot of covering. We'll have to have plywood to cover the tops and then plastics over that. And it'll be a pain, but not something we can't accomplish. It's just extra work. And there'll be some days like this coming week where we're not going to get work at all done because it'll just rain too much. And that'll just delay us. But even if we lost, a couple months worth of time with rain delays, it's only a couple months. And it is okay. We'll get the boat built. So,
yeah, we're not letting this stop us. We're just going to tackle one issue at a time.
Right. And so, for example, instead of the shipping container, we're probably going to purchase a toy box trailer because it's allowed on the lot where a shipping container is not. And we can move all the little pieces into the toy box. And so there are solutions that we can do to allow us to keep going. As far as a covering for rain or a shade covering, those are two separate things. For rain, we're just going to put tarps over the boat. And once we get this early part done where we get the decks on and the top on and stuff, once the shell of the boat is together, and that's going to happen over the next few months, once that's done, we can lay tarps right on over the top of the thing because 80% of the rest of the work is all inside the boat. And so we don't have to worry so much about rain and shade there. And if there's something we have to do out on one of the decks, putting in a hatch or working on a stanchion or something, we can just expose that little area for the day, put up temporary shade over us, and get to work. And if it's going to rain, we'll just put the tarp back over it again. So there are solutions to working on the lot. And those solutions will probably cost us a little more time, but they won't stop us. And so we have a plan to get this boat done. And it's not ideal, but it's the way we're going to do it. There's a siren going by, so we're going to break for a second. Have Marianne tell you about what's coming next week.
Yeah, lots of rain.
What's the prediction?
Monday through Friday, rain.
Yeah, it's one of the big rainstorms that we're going to get. And it's not going to be the last one. So this week, at the end of the week, we covered everything, the hulls, even though they're fairly well protected with all the fairing compound on them, and the ones got the berry coat on it already. We still covered them anyway. And we covered all the tables and everything else that needed to be covered and put everything else away. And so we're already batting down the hatches for the coming rain next week. But that means we're not going to get much boat work done. Now what we are going to do is, if you'll recall, we had to replace all the BMSs in our batteries because we had that short, and we thought that those BMSs got burnt out. They didn't. Actually, I had put in so many fuses into these things, so many backups and fuses and circuit breakers and such, that it was actually one of the fuses, little tiny 5 amp fuse in one of the charging wires that had gotten blown, and that's why they weren't working. Once we discovered that, we found that all the BMSs worked, but we still have to replace them because of the earlier mistake I made in that these are 200 amp maximum output BMSs, but that's not continuous, that's momentary. And so continuous, they're only 100 amp, and 100 amp is not enough for our electric motors. So we have purchased new 350 momentary and 200 amp BMSs, and that will be enough for what we need. But that means we have to replace all those. And we replaced a couple of them and got the lot going again, but there's still 4 more batteries we have to take apart and replace those BMSs on. So we're going to use this rain week to get those batteries fixed back up again and solve that issue. And then I'll sell those 6 other BMSs because they're all perfectly fine. We tested them, they work great. And so I can sell those and get recoup a little bit of money off of the sale of those. Same thing on the tunnel tent. We're going to put it up for sale. It's had 1 day of use. Literally, it got up and we took it down the next day. So it's practically new. So we'll try to get that. We'll lose a little bit, but we'll try to sell it soon. And we're selling the shipping containers as well. So and we always intended to do that. So we'll recoup some of those losses. They'll still losses, but they won't be the complete amount that it cost us to get those things originally. So that's what we're doing this week. And one more thing. You'll notice that there's a Christmas tree there and some holiday decorations in front of us. That's because this coming week is Christmas. And so I want to wish all of you a very happy holidays from the Admiral and I. And thank you again for watching our YouTube channel. We do appreciate you, and we appreciate all of our patrons as well. And we will see you next week for a video, though there's still not going to be work done a lot because it's going to rain all week, and we're going to do the holidays. But we will do a video next week anyway and discuss a different subject. So we'll see you next week for that.
And don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified of that next video.
You bet. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
And happy holidays, everyone.
Yep.